The following is brought to you by AB Puppy, Just Another Pilot, and Daily Tech News Show.
Trump. Routh, armed with an AK-47 style rifle, was carrying a GoPro camera and was seemingly preparing to film the assassination. After being seen by witnesses, Routh fled in a black Nissan SUV but was apprehended 45 minutes later on Interstate 95. Further reports from the Secret Service say that he was spotted by a Secret Service officer who was scouting one hole ahead of where Donald Trump was golfing. They shot at Routh, who then took off. Routh has a criminal history, including a 2002 arrest for possession of a weapon of mass destruction. Law enforcement recovered the rifle, camera, and other evidence from the scene, and it is important to note that Routh is alive. So we will see more of Routh as we go forward. I'm going to begin this episode, which will not go into the clips from the Sunday shows, because I don't feel like the breakdowns of what happened in the debate are necessarily going to be particularly germane, or at least as germane as they were earlier this morning into this afternoon and evening because of this news. Before we get further into this, which will be the entirety of the episode, I'll give you the summation. J.D. Vance was on a lot of the shows. He remains a utility player for the Donald Trump campaign, and it largely focused on whether or not the Haitian cats and dogs story was an incitement to violence, or, in J.D. Vance's terms, a airing of grievances from his constituents that has pointed out what the media seeks to ignore, which is the immigration influx into Springfield, Ohio, and other cities. On the assassination attempt, let me begin here. Longtime listeners and viewers of mine will know that I am a keen fan of history, specifically the 1960s. I've done 2 seasons of a podcast called Raise the Dead that has specifically compared the Donald Trump era with the Kennedy era, and is eventually what dovetailed from it. Whenever we have a conversation about heated political rhetoric, I often say it seems a lot louder than it really is because of our fractured media system. We pay attention to it as much as we want, and when all of your media becomes infected by politics, then it will absolutely be infected by hyperbole. We will highlight the most extreme elements of our enemies, and we will downplay the bad actors of our side. The multiple assassination attempts on Donald Trump have given me pause, because the one line that I had always said is that whatever you think about our modern world, it ain't the 60s, because we were killing either presidential candidates or major figures surrounding politics at about a once every 2 year clip. And so, with Donald Trump now having faced 2 assassination attempts, there is an element of reflection that has to be done to understand where we are. Now, I don't want this to be what you will see a lot from other mouthpieces. This is not going to be a direct grafting of anything that is out there from Routh to mainstream political thought. Something I have said consistently, and you can check my tape on this. When you make the decision to try to take somebody's life, you are very rarely connected to the mainstream of politics. You are in a fringe of a fringe of a fringe. That, to me, has been consistent. And so, I don't like to, and I actively discourage people to tie political violence to whomever the perpetrators seem to support. I did not blame Rachel Maddow or Bernie Sanders for Steve Scalise getting shot. I did not blame Sarah Palin for Gabby Giffords getting shot. I did not blame Joe Biden for Donald Trump getting shot the first time. And similarly, as we're going to go through what we know about Routh, I don't believe that there is any one direct connection from mainstream political thought to this person. Now, there are some interesting elements of what life this man led, and we're going to get into that in a second. But first, let's go over some of the details of this case first. First, just some basic details here, a little South Florida geography. If you are watching us on YouTube, then you can see an infographic of where Trump International is, which is in West Palm Beach. This is in southeastern Florida, what is referred to as the more northern environs of South Florida. South Florida is comprised of Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. I'm from Broward County, the one in the middle. Palm Beach County is the one up top. It is a more affluent area toward the coast. Inland, it is not, but obviously it is a haven for snowbirds from the Northeast, and golf is something that is very popular down there. If you get on 95 going north, that is where you begin to get out of South Florida and into Central Florida. The beginnings of that are Martin County, and it appears that Routh was picked up as he came by Stewart, Florida, very close to Port St. Lucie. A interesting confluence, as Port St. Lucie was where Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago documents case was based. Ron DeSantis tweeting that the state of Florida will be conducting its own investigation regarding the attempted assassination at Trump International Golf Club. The people deserve to know the truth of the would-be assassin and how he was able to get within 500 yards of the former president and current GOP nominee. The FBI also announcing that they will be investigating. And now let's get into what we know, because Routh was a very colorful character. Not only was he somebody that apparently was a full-time resident in Hawaii, yet had a North Carolinian accent, but he was, without question, animated by the Ukraine war. He was part of a story written by the New York Times in March 2023, the headline being "Stolen Valor, the U.S. Volunteers in Ukraine Who Lie, Waste, and Bicker." And I want to point this out because this is being circulated by more conservative voices by just taking the parts where Routh is quoted. And if you don't know the context of the story, if you don't read the story, you might think that he is being quoted kind of as an expert or somebody that is an important part of the Ukraine war effort. That is not the case. Again, the headline tells the tale. Stolen valor, the U.S. volunteers in Ukraine who lie, waste, and bicker. This is about American citizens that were very animated by Ukraine, that went to Ukraine because Ukraine called for anybody that wanted to volunteer, and what they found was a lot of loons. They were not as prepared as they said they were. Many of them lied about military service. What you found was, at least according to this article, a brigade of Dunning-Kruger effect. People who just believed they were able to do something. There's one of the men who were quoted in this story saying, well, I felt like I had to go and defend Ukraine because I had shot a rifle when I was 13. So that plus good feelings and a hearty vibe make you believe you should charge to the front of a war zone. So, Routh is not an expert. However, he is somebody that does something in Ukraine. And let's go to where he is quoted here. With Legion growth stalling, we quote from the story. And the Legion that is referred to as the International Legion, this was set up by Ukraine to bring in these international fighters. Ryan Routh, a former construction worker from Greensboro, North Carolina, is seeking recruits from among Afghan soldiers who fled the Taliban. Mr. Routh, who spent several months in Ukraine last year, said he planned to move them, in some cases illegally, from Pakistan to and Iran to Ukraine. He said dozens have expressed interest. Quote, we can probably purchase passports through Pakistan since it's such a corrupt country. He did that in an interview from Washington, by the way. It is not clear whether or not he succeeded, but one former Afghan soldier said he had been contacted and was interested in fighting if it meant leaving Iran, where he was living illegally. Routh was also quoted in Semaphore. Semaphore posting this. Routh was one of the wave of American volunteers in Ukraine, the self-appointed director of a group he'd started called the International Volunteer Center. He was, even by the standards of that frantic moment, a bit over the top. A Ukrainian involved in the effort told us at the time. But he was also, they said, authentically involved in efforts to bring in foreign troops. On X, he frantically tweeted at President Volodymyr Zelensky with his ideas, for instance, to use Independence Park to create a tent city of all the the foreigners here, in support to get thousands more foreign civilians to come and support Ukraine. Routh also told Semaphore that the Ukrainians were not being helpful, as they thought every volunteer would be a Russian spy. So here's what I'm seeing, and I will tell you right now that I'm recording this at 8 o'clock at night Central Time on Sunday. All of this news broke a few hours ago. Here's what we don't know, especially when that New York Times article talks about the proliferation of weapons on the front lines of Ukraine that seemingly were provided by America. We don't know where Routh's weapon came from. We don't know if he bought it. We don't know if it was provided to him. We don't know if it was a quote-unquote service weapon that he was using between Ukraine and here. We don't know any relationship that he has with any kind of governmental agency. Because while we know that he had an interaction with the Ukraine ministry, he posted a form on his Facebook page, and obviously the Volunteer Legion was something that was set up by Ukraine. So we know he had some kind of interaction there, but we don't know what interaction he had with the State Department or some other place. I am not going to be one to tell you that this is proof positive that he was a CIA asset. There's plenty of that online. In fact, let me just stop here and just say what I'm doing now. Here's what I'm doing for you guys. is I'm trying to have a conversation in the way that I would have a conversation if I were in a newsroom looking to cover this. So we're trying to bring up any little thing we can find so we can go find out more about it. And it is with that I now read the more unfortunate elements of this because, like I said before, I want to make this very clear. I do not graft any culpability of mainstream political thought onto a political assassin. And yet, if I'm going to treat you guys like adults, which I believe that you deserve, then we do need to go over this. And that is that Mr. Routh made 19 donations to Democratic causes over the last 2 years. On his publicly available Twitter, before it was deleted, he said he was initially a fan of Donald Trump in 2016, voted for him in 2016, said that he lost his faith in him. He then went on to support Joe Biden, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, at least publicly, and Kamala Harris. He also was a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2020. Here are his most recent tweets. Actually, before we get to the tweets, let's stay here on the Act Blue stuff. I'm just looking at the amounts here. We're looking at $3, $1.50, $19, $10, stuff like that. This is total conjecture. I'm just going to tell you total conjecture on this. This screams to me. These are all Act Blue records. These scream to me as push notifications. Push notifications or email. Those are text messages. Those same emails that you get where the text messages, we only need $1. What can you chip in right now? These are the small dollar donations that I would say would be consistent with that. I have no idea. Maybe each and every time that he made one of these donations, he did so completely thinking of a number by himself. We have to remain that as a possibility. But if I were to take a guess, my hunch is that these were coming from direct pleas. These are his most recent tweets. To Kamala Harris, you and Biden should visit the injured people in the hospital from the Trump rally and attend the funeral of the murdered firemen. Trump would never do anything for them. Show the world what compassion and humanity is all about. This seemed to be a thing that he did consistently, which is listing his phone number in tweets, or at least this is a number that appears to be a phone number. July 16th, Joe Biden, you should visit the victims in the hospital of the Trump rally and attend the funeral of the firemen that died. Trump certainly would never show the world what real leaders do, all caps. April 22nd, at the POTUS account. Your campaign should be called something like KADAF, Keep America Democratic and Free. Trump's should be MASA, Make Americans Slaves Again, Master. Democracy is on the ballot, and we cannot lose. We cannot afford to fail. The world is counting on us to show the way. Then in March 5th, 2020, I was not supporting Bernie, but now I am, as Sleepy Joe stands for nothing. No plans, no ideas, just as limp as Hillary. Bernie, give them hell. Fight to the death. This March 5th, obviously predating Ukraine. Ukraine was very much an animating figure or animating moment for Mr. Routh. So What are we looking for going forward? Well, if we are purely just trying to diagnose this as a news story, the following things that I would like to know immediately are what was on the GoPro. I would like to know what Mr. Routh said his motivations were. I would like to know where he got the gun. I would like to know whether or not the gun came from Ukraine. I would like to know what interaction he had with the State Department, and I do believe that there are very credible, understanding questions that you can ask of the State Department to say, did you have any contact with him? He did appear to be traveling internationally and fighting in a designated war zone that we are supporting. And again, we have a lot of questions to ask of the Secret Service. In a press conference, an official said that Donald Trump does not get the protection of a sitting president, as he did when he was a sitting president, because he is only running for the president. And the difference is that a sitting president, the entire golf course would have been locked down with security. I think it's probably time that for the last 50 some odd days of this election, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris be treated like they are the sitting president. If the sitting president is not moving around the country, then I do believe that both of these candidates and their running mates should be treated like they are the sitting president. Something that I should have said earlier, both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did say that they were very happy Donald Trump was healthy and that violence has no place in politics. Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, the people running the Trump campaign, also said that everybody should be on guard in these final 50 days. I'm going to leave you guys with one thing, and that is there is no good time for somebody to attempt to be assassinated. But where we are now, leading to where we're going, could be among the worst times. We are already in very, very strange times where you have more and more volunteer campaign surrogates in our world. It's not enough to have an opinion. It's not enough to be secure in yourself that you are going to vote for one candidate or another. There is more and more a desire to carry talking points. And I would say more specifically to measure what you're saying, if not even what you're thinking, because you're afraid that if you did something the other way, that it might affect the candidate that you hate in a positive way. Now, I know that that's nobody watching me. Watching me, what we've done on this channel for years now is try to cultivate a different kind of culture. We've tried to cultivate a culture for which politics can be loud, can be boisterous, can be persuasive, but it is not life. It is a decision that we make periodically. It is not a value structure. And we should not erode our value structures so we can support it. I don't believe that it makes you like Donald Trump, support Donald Trump, or even come close to backing his re-election campaign for president to say that he does not bear responsibility for his own assassination attempt, especially this early. I think we can say it's troubling that not one but two people have left their homes with a weapon and tried to kill him. Like I said before, I personally do not graft political speech onto the motivations of people who go this far, go as far as trying to shoot a candidate dead. So I don't believe that Donald Trump is responsible for this. That's another thread that I have seen. I believe that we can have empathy for somebody almost dying twice. We can be afraid that it's going to happen to him yet again or another political actor. But it's going to be harder because of where we are in the calendar. It's going to be harder because of our current cycle. And it's going to be harder because it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the definitional character of this era of politics. He is the definitional character of this, his third campaign. And even saying, I believe Donald Trump was a victim of an assassination attempt, comes with it hesitation from some, if not outright dismissal. If not, as we're already seeing, laments. Laments from some that he's not dead already. We don't have to be that. We'll be back on Wednesday. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'm sure that there's going to be even more to talk about when it comes to this. Until next time, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying, politics has three names.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.